friends, and welcome back. I'm Enterprise Architecture, and ordinarily this is where Geek would say, I'm Geeky or Gamer, but I am flying solo for this mission. I am just doing a quick little check-in to show you all of the wonderful automations that I have set up between episodes before Geek and I start playing again. So I spent a lot of time over this past weekend trying to get as much of the things automated that we've been building in here as possible. Again, most of the automation we're doing at this stage in the game is with Create. So let's start right here in Liminal Industries with this stripped wallpaper system that I've got. So I'm using minecart contraptions from Create for pretty much everything that I'm doing. They're just a really powerful tool, namely because you can do automation without having additional power. And I absolutely love that fact. So this just has a scraper on the end of a deployer, in addition to a barrel on top, and of course the portable storage interface there. And so this is going and trying to scrape wallpaper off the wall over and over again, and then it's just depositing that into this container. Now, we needed that for two reasons. One, so that we could have infinite wallpaper, but secondly, over here we are using our, what do you call it? This igneous extruder? No, what is it called? Yeah, igneous extruder, I got it right. This is making glue. This needs lava on one side and stripped wallpaper on the other side to be able to create glue. So that's what's happening right now. And we have a full chest of glue right now. So that's working really well. Glue you can then put in a furnace, and that gives us basically the rubber equivalent. Let's see here, glue. Yeah, it gives us this cured glue, and we use this for a variety of crafts for Create. Basically anything that normally we would be using that baked kelp for, like the funnels and the tunnels, we're using it for that. So that's also how we get spouts, amazingly. Over here, I think we'd already set this up in between episodes. This is a normal igneous extruder. This is how we are getting our cobblestone. There's lava on one side, there's water on the other. So that's just doing its thing. I don't know why it's not showing up in there, but that is indeed making that for us. No real change here to the Tinker's Contract smeltery, except for I did make sure that all of these casts are basically going into a barrel. So again, all you have to do is put a wooden hopper beneath there. It's gonna suck any finished craft out into there, including blocks or anything in the cast. I'm actually recording this on April Fool's, and I think there's a thing in supplementaries that's making anything on a shelf turn into fish. So I did make a gem cast, but yeah, it looks like a fish for some reason. I don't know why that is, but it is what it is. Anyway, now on to the main event. I used another one of those minecart contraptions to automate our production of bamboo. So right up here, we have basically the same minecart contraption, only it's got a saw on the end, and you can see right here, it's cutting through all of these bamboo pieces, and that is giving us a bunch of pieces of bamboo, and also it cuts me. That's not great. I didn't realize that the ceiling was so close to me, so unfortunately, it is somewhat of a problem here because they're not going as tall as I would like. But right underneath here, we have these on blocks of snad, which means we can put a redstone pulse to make it grow faster. And that's exactly what's happening here. I'm using this redstone timer clock to loop around, triggering these to grow ridiculously quick. And that's working really well for us. So that produces all of our bamboo. Now, that gets dumped in here into a mechanical press with a basin, and that gets turned into blocks of bamboo. The blocks of bamboo are then getting sucked into this spruce drawer here. Now, the spruce drawer pulls out immediately, and then there's a fan over here that blows through this lava, and that's baking this bamboo. And once that bamboo is baked, it goes into another locked drawer, and you can see there, it's turning into charcoal. That gets sucked into this drawer here. And in just a second, we'll see that. Although it might not, because I'm assuming, yeah, let's turn this part off for now. The charcoal here is full. And the charcoal is going into our basic burner to power our steam engine. Now, as we learned before, the steam engine, once it gets going, once you have some fuel going in here and into at least one of the burners, this is just going to continue to produce power. And you can see we've only got one tick of heat, but it is full of water because this is all automated to pull water out of this infinite water source here. Now, I do still have a crank on here. If for any reason this shuts down, we can at least jumpstart it. But for every other part of the system, you can see that I've added a clutch so that if we do need to jumpstart the system, this is an easy way for us to turn off all of the other pieces of the system so that we have enough power just by hand cranking. Otherwise, the hand crank, it's going to be overstressed. We can't power all of these machines just off of a hand crank. So that's why that's there. But yeah, so basically this little loop here using a combination of andesite belt funnels going into any storage door that is locked for input and then back out. This gives us basically the equivalent of a brass tunnel with a filter. So it's a really cheap and easy way to be able to do filters instead. So that's how this is working. That's how we are getting our steam. Now, very similarly, we are doing a real big janky mess here to be able to get infinite lava. And you can see right here, I have a full giant fluid tank of lava by using this. Up at the very, very top there, we have a block of lava and a block of water, an infinite water source on either side of another igneous extruder, as I showed you just before. That is making cobblestone for us. The cobblestone goes into a deployer, and that deployer then puts the cobblestone into a bucket. Now there's only one bucket in the system, and you can see it's right back there right now. So it's going to fill that bucket with cobblestone. This drawer only accepts buckets full of cobblestone, so that's how that's working and filtering this. That then gets dropped out here and onto this depot, where the next block over of lava has a fan above it. And again, this is using the auto smelting that we can do with fans and lava and a little single iron bar to hold it. That's then blowing down here and cooking that. The bucket of cobblestone becomes a bucket of lava. That then gets pulled out on the back here onto a, what do you call it? It's a drain, right? Yeah, the item drain. So this is going to try and pull lava out of the bucket, and then it's going to dump it into this wooden hopper here when it's done. It just bounces back up and over. Now I have an upper here because we have no item cables whatsoever yet. No mechanism cables. We have nothing. We have no logistical transporters, no way to get items moved around except for with hoppers and uppers. So this hopper here pulls into this upper, and the upper pushes up into this depot, and the cycle continues where the empty bucket will then get more cobblestone put in, and so forth and so on. And so that's how we get infinite lava that we can then use later on to power this at a future date. I don't know where that noise is coming from, but it sure is loud. Okay, so the lava I think will then be used to eventually power these blaze burners that we're going to replace these basic burners with. So that's the plan for that. So that's how all of our infinite power system is set up. Let's hop over here and just take a real quick look at the machines that we've made. This works exactly like the machines that we had set up very, very early on. First episode, second episode, something like that, where we have mechanical presses, we have deployers, and I also have the rolling mill set up to be able to automate. All you have to do is flip this switch here, and then this machine can start accepting inputs, and then we can turn it back off with a clutch as well. The deployer shows it a little better because you can at least see it poking down over and over again, so you know if that's doing anything. So this gives us the automation that we need if we want to use these. Now, for my viewers who watched EA Farm, the series that I did a year ago based on the pack that I made about farming, I've basically used the exact same system that I did there for being able to do auto washing and auto cooking. Well, it's not really auto because you still have to pick up the items when they're done, but it's the same gist here. We have buckets of lava over top of a piece of iron bar, and that's just blowing down here. It's exactly what we did over there. I just made it look a little pretty. And conveniently enough, bamboo trapdoors do not catch on fire when you put them next to lava. So this works really well. So we can do washing right here at the washing station, and we can do any sort of smelting over here at the smelting station. So that's really nice, and I love the way that this works. Now, I did want to show off one other thing here. Well, let me just mention the crushing wheels are exactly the same way that we had them before. We just have a hopper going in, barrel on top, and then same thing on the bottom. Hopper coming out, barrel on bottom, and here's all the things in our crushing wheel. And again, you just turn this on and off right here with this same clutch that we had been using before. All right, y'all, this took a really long time for me to figure out. Now, I actually had to get some help from a wonderful video from Rick MC, aka at Ricky Jack, which I'll post a link to right above here. Basically, what I'm trying to do is automate Brewin and Chewin's kegs, and I couldn't figure out a really good way to do this. What I found out you need to do is basically insert the water on the bottom and then insert the ingredients on the top. Now, the only limitation here is that the keg does only work for the recipes in Liminal Industries if you only have a single item in there. You can have a single stack of an item, but my Fluxtooth spores, for instance, if it's in 2 slots, this will stop working. So you do have to do a little bit of manual work here if you don't have any more advanced pipes. So this contraption here that I have put together basically has all of the water being pulled from this infinite water source behind it using these pipes, and then it goes into the bottom of the kegs. I have a heating cask here behind it And this is the magical part. The heating cask can be up to 2 blocks away from a keg and it'll still work. So I can actually put it over here, not directly under it, and then this will very easily heat these up to the warm temperature they need to be able to brew. And then once the finished item comes out, you can see it just happened. It drops it out of this andesite funnel into a wooden hopper, into this barrel. The barrel has an upper on top. That's how we get vertical lift when we don't have item pipes yet. Goes into a wooden hopper, another wooden hopper, another wooden hopper, and back into the barrel. And then it drops it back down in here. So we have this infinite loop over and over again of those spores, and it'll continue to make duplicates of them. But as I mentioned before, this only works if you keep an eye on it and make sure that you don't have more than one stack in the keg of that item. Otherwise, you'll have trouble. Of course, the Slitaki spores work exactly the same way. If I pull this out, you can see it'll get started doing that. And that's how we get infinite slime balls and infinite redstone in the Liminal Industries pack. Now, if we had access to brass, this would be really easy to split these up because all we'd have to do is put a brass funnel directly onto the keg. That would drop out both of the items at once. We could then dump them into an ash alloy tunnel or an andesite tunnel as you're probably used to knowing them by, and that would evenly split that stack of 2 items into 1 and 1. One could go back into our storage, one would go back into the system and continue to rebrew. So, given that we don't have brass, my best recommendation here is I think we're going to build our first create logistics network. And that means we're going to use some item vaults, we might use some frog ports and things like that. I've never done this before, so it's going to be an adventure. We're going to need some factory gauges, and thankfully, in this version of the pack, we can make those without needing access to brass. Precision mechanisms in this case are just golden sheets with cogwheels, large cogwheels, and iron nuggets. So let me go make up a bunch of precision mechanisms and see what happens. All right, precision mechanisms are done. We basically just have to feed each of the cogwheel, large cogwheel, and iron nuggets manually into our deployer over and over again, and eventually those will get done. That took a little while, but it's not a big deal. Pretty easy at this point in the pack. Now, the stock link should be just as easy. We need to make a transmitter first, and that means we need to make a lightning rod. So let's go over here to this crafting table. We should be able to make a couple of lightning rods real fast. There we go. Then what we're going to need to do is make 3 copper sheets each. That means we are going to need 6 pieces of copper all day. Let's grab this back up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There we go. Run over here to our smooshing machine. This one is a smoosher. This will make those for us real fast. Smoosh, smoosh, smoosh. There we go. Turn it back off. And now we have 6 copper sheets. And then all we need on top of that is going to be redstone. So let's do this, and 1, 2. There we go. Transmitters are done. We are going to now need some item vaults. We had already made up a bunch of item vaults in the past. Easy enough for us to combine these right there. And now we have stock links. Wonderful. Okay, stock links put together with our precision mechanisms give us our factory gauges, and we get 2 each of those. Now we might need to make more stock links. I think that is indeed going to be the case because I feel like the gauges only work if you have more stock links. So yeah, right click a stock link before placement to connect to its network. So we will need to make up a few more of those. Let me go do that real quick, just the way we just did. All right, so to set this up, we are going to need a minimum of 4 packagers here. That means we need to make 4 ash alloy casings. These are also andesite casings if you were used to the normal version of Create. Of course, we are in Liminal, so it is slightly different here. We are going to need, what was that? Cardboard that we need to add to this? Let's see here. Yes, blocks of cardboard, and I believe somewhere in here we should have those blocks of cardboard from our, there we go, blocks of cardboard. That's what we want from our exploration. We picked up a bunch of those. 1, 2, 3, 4, easy enough to make those up, no problem. All right, let's grab these real fast here. Now we should be able to use the packagers along with our stock link to be able to set our inventory requirements for these kegs here. So the real question is going to be, will we be able to insert from the packager directly into the keg? Now, it looks like based on that element that we can indeed. So I'm going to assume that that's going to be the input. I'm also going to assume that if I put our ash alloy funnels on the front, that will be our output. So we should be able to use the packager here to then request from these inventories, just like this. So now that we know that we can do that, we are going to need to output from these directly into our actual output items, which in this case is going to be our storage blocks. So we have our storage right over here. We're going to use these, what is it? Storage drawers. Yeah, we have storage drawers in this pack. So we're going to use those to insert into. Let's grab up our wooden hoppers as well. And we are going to want to insert directly into these. So I believe we'll have enough room. Yeah, we will. There we go. This will insert into there with our wooden hopper. So it should pull out of there and directly into this. We just need to reverse the direction of our ash alloy funnels. There we go. Let's do the same thing here for our flux tooth spores as well. So we'll grab this. We're going to put it down right here. There we go. And now we are going to put our wooden hoppers directly into that. Wonderful. Now, with any luck, we should be able to then take our packagers here and put these on the side of these. And you can see it is connecting on the side of that, and it's connecting on the side of that. All right, now we need to stock link our inventories. So let's go ahead and add a stock link. Well, this is not the place we want that. Let's move this. Now we can put our stock link right here. There we go. So this is now tied into this system. All right, so let's take our single factory gauge. We're going to hit it into this stock link, and we're going to put it onto this packager. This packager, we're now going to tell that we want to keep track of flux tooth spores. There we go. And we're going to tell it that we just want one at a time. All right, so with all those pieces in place, let's take a look at what the finished build looks like here. So in our storage drawers, I moved everything up just a little bit, give us a little more room to work. But we have our flux tooth spores here and our Slotaki spores in this one. Each of those has our packager on top. And then on top of that, we have a stock link. So the stock link ties to the packager ties to the storage drawer that's attached to it, and it knows about the items contained therein. Now, we have these belts going from our export from the packager into a janky little system here that has a depot, an upper, and then a wooden hopper to go back into a packager just slightly higher, because we have to insert our items back into our kegs from the top for this to work. So our packagers that are the input are directly on top of the keg. So we then have a factory gauge, which I've right-clicked onto the stock link to be able to tell it that it's attached to that. Then we can configure the item and the name of it. And this now knows that it's supposed to get Slotaki spores. This one knows that it's supposed to get our flux tooth spores. If you right click and hold, you can configure how many of those it should have in the inventory at any given time. In this case, both of them say we should have exactly one. And that means that anytime this keg slot here is empty, it will then go and request another one from the system, and it'll get inserted into the top. Now, if the packager is on the side, it'll instead go into this slot, which is the item slot for filling. That's not what we want. So instead, it has to go in the top. And then, of course, the items fall out the back here using the ash alloy funnels into the hopper and then back into the storage drawers. So since we're getting two out, this is then requesting one to go back in after that's done, and the cycle goes over and over again. So if we hang out here for just a second, we will watch and see that happen just in a loop. Here it goes. There goes the output. Momentarily, we'll see the input. There we go. And now it's got another one going in here. And there we go. Another Slotaki spore, and the system continues. Let's take a look at the keg. This is going to do it again here. Watch it drop really quickly. There it goes. Now it's going to request another one. There we go. Packaged, sent rapidly, goes in here, drops into the keg, and now the keg has yet another flux tooth spore. Now, the packager, although it looks like it's making things into cardboard boxes, you do not need to supply it with cardboard boxes. It just magically works. So this is our new automated setup, and this will not overflow. We won't have any backup problems, and this will work perfectly. And of course, with our heating cask right here, this can supply both of these kegs with all of the heat they need. So this is now done and completely automated. Now, of course, once we have a stock ticker, we'll be able to request items out of this network as well and into other areas if we want. We'll be able to use frog ports to do that, but that is going to be a project for a future day. But for now, that's going to be the end of this episode. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you back here next time. Bye, friends!